All right, everybody, welcome. It is March 23rd, and today we have a guest speaker event with Sanjay Pothula. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, Sanjay, you can correct me or?
Yeah, it's Sanjay Pothula. Sanjay Pothula.
Pothula, okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll talk about his background a little bit later on, but first we're going to talk about our e-board elections that are upcoming about a week from today. So Connor, do you want to start talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, just so very basic stuff. We'll send out an email probably in the next couple days for those who are interested in running for a position on eBoard. We're going to simplify it a little bit for next year. We're just going to do president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and a marketing officer. So look for an email in the next couple days. Like I said, what we're leaning towards is just kind of doing like a Google form. We just basically explain like why you're interested, what you want to do to make the club better, and any ideas you have, and then we'll vote, and that's kind of how we'll do it. The whole sports head things, we'll probably do that internally, so that would be later on. But like I said, look for an email, and yeah. Anything else you want to add, Peter?
No, it's pretty much it. Just you should check your email. We'll put it all the details on there, and if you're interested, then definitely run. We're looking for people, looking for new ideas. So, yeah. So, with that, I'll take care of Sanjay. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about background, your history, just a synopsis on your career so far.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Sanjay Pothula. I graduated from Fordham in 2015 from the Gabelli School of Business. My major was marketing and my minor was economics. I interned for Trackman Baseball in 2015, in the summer of 2015, I think. And so I spent a lot of time in that area, really just learning about the analytics revolution that was going on in baseball, the data aspect that kind of came with that. So just learning more about spin rates and launch angles and batted ball velocities, and just learning the intricacies and learning more about the data on that end. Then in 2016, I interned with the New York Mets as a baseball operations intern. So I kind of learned more about how the front office works, kind of see where I could fit in potentially. 2017, I interned as a business analytics intern for the New York Mets. And so I kind of helped with, I created the ticketing revenue projections and created different ticketing plans and just created analytics through that area. And then in 2018, I was again with the Mets as a baseball research and development associate. So my role was dealing with player development and helping with the analytics that were involved with that, seeing how the Mets could improve players through analytics, and developing different metrics for measuring player evaluation, helping out with the international side, developing the international database, developing international evaluations. And then after 2018, I'm still at Rutgers University as a master's student in statistics. And I just in January started as an analyst in the research and innovation department for the Milwaukee Bucks. And so right now I'm dealing with creating player and team evaluation metrics for the Bucks. Kind of dealing more with just creating reports and understanding how to deal with the back end and the front end of the data analysis, and just getting the communication aspect to our other analysts and coaches and other front office members.
Very cool. Matt, you want to kick off our questions?
For sure. So, Sanjay, where do your desire to enter the sports analytics industry come from or originate?
Yeah, so working in sports analytics is kind of something I've always been interested in since a young age. I've always been interested in statistics, and I was kind of always the kid in the barber shop that would have like sports statistics memorized, and I would kind of quote sports statistics like all the time. And it really wasn't like I saw a path and kind of doing that kind of stuff when I was in like high school. But at that time, like the analytics departments within teams wasn't as developed. So it was like something I was like thinking about, but I didn't know exactly how to do it. And really like being at Fordham and like for a lot of students, like, and this was like a common theme like at Fordham was like how, you kind of just have to get through the prereq classes. But for me, like taking those prereq classes was like shaped a lot of what I'm doing now. I took 2 statistics classes with Jillian Iqbal, and that really kind of like got me really interested in statistics. But at that point, I didn't really know exactly. That was like around my sophomore year, but I didn't know exactly how to shape that into actually analyzing data. And it really wasn't until my senior year when I took econometrics class with Philip Shaw that like everything kind of came together for me. And I was able to really understand the statistical principles and like actually know how to apply it through R and like actually be able to analyze it. So really that was like a good starting point for me. And then I was able to really build up my skill. And I saw a path for me to like work in sports analytics at that point.
Awesome. So when you were talking about your background for a little bit, you mentioned you were with the Mets for a number of years and then the Bucks, but just looking on your LinkedIn and stuff like that, it also said you had history in tennis and I believe one other sport. Hockey, that's what it was.
Yeah, I forgot to mention I was actually with the Islanders for like a season. That was in like 2013. I was like a marketing intern. So yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I guess how do you think having the background in all those 4 sports has kind of shaped the research you've done and the kind of ideation and just kind of your mindset that you put into the research that you perform with the Bucks or with the Mets or any team?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like 2 aspects to it. There's one is like playing the sport, and the second is just having the experience of working in the other sports. Tennis, I played for a long time. I played high school. I was the captain of my high school team. In college, somehow I did it. I don't know how. I think back to it. I don't know how I did it, but I taught tennis during the week and on weekends at Maywood Tennis Club in New Jersey. So after class, I would, get my butt to Maywood, and I would teach for like 4 to 5 hours, and I taught maybe like 8 hours a week. And for me, like tennis in general, like being able to teach it, like kind of gave me more of that analytical mindset, because I was always kind of looking to see how I can improve my students and like see like what drills I could do, what were some analytical principles that were going on in the game. So I always felt like I was kind of ahead of the curve versus like other coaches. And also in terms of playing is just like understanding how to deal with failure. Because just generally in the sports industry, it's pretty hard to get a position as an analyst, and you have to deal with you have to treat everything like a process of like when you go through the interviews, it's like that's a learning experience. Each one is so, and you just keep on thinking of it as like a growing opportunity, because especially with tennis, when you're just playing as like a singles match, you don't really have anyone to blame but yourself. And so, like that is like pretty tough to deal with when you're, if you lose matches or like I'm a person that hates losing, but like having those experiences playing wise, really kind of helped give me the confidence to go forward with like being able to handle failure in terms of getting an opportunity to work in sports. But in terms of like other sports, in terms of basketball, hockey, baseball, I'm always looking at like new ideas and how to incorporate them. Generally, when it comes to like working for a team, generally other teams do not want to share information. So it's hard to get exposed to like different ideas when it comes to like projections or player evaluation techniques. And if you just stay generally in like one sport, you're going to get put into a box of what ideas and what stuff you can analyze. So I generally like looking at the other sports because it really just gives you new ideas. Like when it comes to hockey, some of the stuff they're doing in terms of shots on goal and stuff like that, like that's interesting stuff, and that's stuff that can apply to baseball and basketball. And like when it comes to baseball, they have some of the best projections, and so you can look to see like, okay, how can I apply that to the industry I'm working with? So being able to see other sports and be able to see those ideas, it's really important.
Oh no, definitely. That's something here at our club. We post research on all different sports, and it's kind of interesting to see, like, let's say the golf article, for instance, something that people don't really think about golf analytics at all. But when you kind of break it down, you can see what ideas can translate from, let's say, baseball or basketball, and it really just helps to open your mind. So it's definitely true.
Yeah, it's who's that guy that's Bryson DeChambeau. Like a lot of the stuff he does, like it's cut from the same cloth of what's going on in baseball in terms of its analytics. And you could look at the tweets from like Drive on Baseball and you see, they're kind of talking about the same thing. So, it's good to get those types of ideas.
Yeah, well, a lot of things like TrackMan, especially, that came from, or not TrackMan, Rapsodo, sorry, came from golf originally, and then
TrackMan. No, it was TrackMan.
TrackMan? Okay,
because I was there, so it was like that's all they talked. It was like I think it was in like Finland or something. So like the headquarters, it was weird because it was like baseball, but like the headquarters is in Finland.
Yeah, weird origins.
Yeah.
Matt, you want to head our next question?
Yeah. So, what are some of the most rewarding projects you've ever done? What challenges have they presented, and what kind of research you need to do to complete them in your mind?
I mean, the biggest one for me was like when I was working with the Mets, dealing with the international side. There really wasn't like international analytics at the Mets at the time. We were doing stuff internationally, but we weren't really looking taking advantage of all the potential data there. And so like as an intern, I was ambitious, so I tried to do as much as I could. And knowing that Shohei Ohtani was going to come over possibly at some point, I just like compiled all the potential information that was there, gathered up as much statistics as possible, kind of built out his section. I would stay up at like 2-3 in the morning sometimes and just record Japanese games and just record his games and made sure that it was there for anyone to see. And by the time I was gone, I was gone for a year. I was on the business. I was a business analytics intern, and then I had a little brief rest where I was like, I was at Rutgers. When I came back to the Mets in 2018, I got a lot of congratulations and a lot of people that were thankful that I saved all that Ohtani stuff, because when it came to digging into him and evaluating him, it was pretty easy because a lot of the stuff I put together in 2016. So that was like pretty cool for me. And I saw more of an opportunity, and I just kept on building out that international section when I came back, and I really dug in and tried to find potential players that like we could look at. And that became really rewarding for me because not just Shohei Ohtani, there was like other guys that were on the radar, and I was able to be a big part of that.
Wow, that's awesome to be like so early on someone who's now become such a star. That is really cool.
Yeah, it was like it was one of those things like I had been exposed to him just because of the MLB did that international game, and I knew there was like an opportunity there to do some stuff internationally. And I was like, who is this guy? So, and I mean, the fact that I he hit and he pitched, and not many people know, but in that, I think the year they won the championship, I think it was like 2016, 2017. He he started, he closed games, and he like hit the living crap out of the ball. And it's like, that kind of went a little bit unnoticed at that time. And obviously when he had that chance to come over, I made sure to just be ahead of the curve, and that really was cool for me.
And when you talk about building these systems, what kind of skills did you need? What kind of, like technical ability did you need to perform the work you're performing?
Yeah, so I mean, generally, in terms of like data collection, you really need to know Python now in terms of the data analysis, that's becoming more like data collection and data analysis is becoming more involved in Python. R analysis, I mean, using R is really important for data analysis because that's what most statisticians are using. But generally, you just want to be balanced in a lot of things. That's kind of what I found. As weird as this sounds, like when I was working at Maywood Tennis Club, there's a guy that I respected quite a bit. He was a tennis teacher, but he worked as like a database administrator. I knew him for quite a bit, and he kind of always talked about like being flexible within languages, and that kind of hit me a little bit. So I was like, when working for teams, to be really recognized and be able to do like really impactful work, you got to be flexible to be able to change between languages. Once you kind of know Python, you can really kind of get into like JavaScript and learn more about PHP. And like, it all seems really scary because it's so many languages, but like if you put yourself out there and be able to do that, it becomes a lot easier.
Definitely. So I guess what advice would you have for somebody who is in our shoes and wants to enter the industry, broadly speaking, but if you have on that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, I mean, first of all, when it comes to like working in sports, the one thing I get like a lot is like generally wanting to work in sports is just not enough. You need to have like an interest within working in sports. So like for me, like I'm really passionate about statistics in sports. So like, there's a lot of people that just want to work for a sports team and be like, oh, this is cool doing this, but you have to really have a passion for digging into the information when it comes to digging into the analytics. Why is this the reason? Like what, like figuring out like, why is Shohei Ohtani good? Or, like not necessarily he's good because I like him, but like an evidence-based reasoning behind that theory. So that's kind of one aspect, is like really having a passion for like the specifics of what you're working in. So like if you're passionate about statistics or passionate about analytics, then like that will get you pretty far. And like I said before, working in like sports analytics, it's becoming more obvious. You just need to be able to code. You need to know how to be able to use Python. You need to be able to use R. And if you want to take it a step further, just being able to switch between languages. So R, Python, web development or backend development. I didn't even mention SQL. Like that is like essential, because being able to dig through information, be able to compile information, and then be able to analyze it. And kind of like a big component of like working in data analytics is being able to analyze data, but it's also cleaning data. Generally, they say when it comes to data analysis, 90% is cleaning and 10% is actually the analysis. And generally, that's what I would say, is that just having a passion for working in analytics or whatever you want to do. It could be marketing, it could be business intelligence, doesn't matter. Just having a passion for a specific and just having the flexibility to switch between coding languages.
Awesome.
So I know you've mentioned already a few specific professors and classes from Fordham, but is there anything else about being at Fordham that helped lay the groundwork for your career?
It's definitely like just knowing how to grind a little bit. I think that's like the great thing that Fordham does is that, like you have to know how to be able to reach out to, you got to put yourself out there. You need to be able to reach out to people in the sports industry, get interviews, and not generally like asking for an opportunity, but just getting to know people. And you never know who's going to help you out in the end. And so building this kind of stuff is really important. Like the boss that I have now, I mean, I've known him since the Mets. And funny enough, like I've known him since I was at Fordham. Like I did the Diamond Dollars Challenge. I don't know if they still do that, but when I did that, my boss was the only one sitting in the crowd. So you never know when like your time comes. So just building those connection skills, and that's I think I learned quite a bit from doing that kind of stuff at Fordham. And generally the statistics professors, I mean, I wish there was more statistics at Fordham, but the economics professors and the statistics professors, like even just spending time in their office hours, I used to, it's kind of dorky, but I would go to Dr. Shaw's office hours like once a week, and just like we just talk about random statistics or talk about like potential projects I could work on, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess going off of foundations of your career, I noticed just looking on LinkedIn, you wrote for a blog, started a blog. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think that's like I think it's really important to do that kind of stuff. Like even now, before I got this job with the Bucks, I spent a lot of time like writing out evaluations, writing out my blog in terms of like I wrote out random blog posts about prospects or being able to deep dive on those guys, and being able to like have that skill in terms like I think when I was at Fordham, I wrote a lot about like player evaluations or different types of statistics that I was looking at the time. And being able to write is like really important in terms of working in analytics too, because being able to write that player evaluation or that team evaluation or giving your opinion, being able to write have a process down for how you evaluate players, that really is important. So like having developed it's a skill that I've developed like over time, and I find that if I ever take like a break from writing, it's something I have to work myself way back up. So like doing that kind of stuff is important. And as weird as it sounds, like Fordham I think requires you to do a lot of writing in terms of the English classes and the theology classes. As sometimes frustrating it was to deal with like all those like difficult reading assignments, I noticed it like kind of it really helps me in my job like right now.
Awesome. So I guess now we can open it up to the floor if you guys have had any questions in mind. We got a pretty decent turnout today, so yeah, if anybody's got a question, then just shoot.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey Sanjay, first off, just wanted to say I love the jersey.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I got the Vladimir Guerrero.
yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I thought either that or Pedro, but yeah. Anyway, you talked a lot about programming and coding, and so I think in December was kind of when I started kind of diving in deep to Python, just trying to learn a little bit every day. Could you talk a little bit about like your process for actually learning it and how you started to build up like after learning Python or R, branching out into different languages? Because I feel like right now I'm still trying to get comfortable enough with Python to where I start to kind of delve into SQL or some of these other languages.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for your question, Peter. Yeah, I think it's really just important to and kind of embrace being uncomfortable. Part of the process of coding is just like it is going on Stack Overflow, and part of that is when you're digging into like Stack Overflow is not necessarily looking at the first solution, but what is like the best solution for you, and what is supposed to be ideally the best solution in terms of what is simple and what makes sense in terms of coding. When I kind of learned Python at the time, this was probably around 2015, around there. Kind of the big thing that I would do is kind of work on. You can look this up. It's like Python practice problems, and so I would kind of dig through those. I think there was like 100 or 101, and so I would just like kind of dig through those like many days at a time and just like try to do one a day or a couple of times a day, and eventually that skill grew. And ultimately, when you work on just that's one side of it. It's like building that foundation in terms of practice. The second side is like working on projects. There's also so many great resources on YouTube that you can look at for the foundation side. I would definitely advise. I think his name's Corey Schaefer, if you want to take a look at him. But building projects is like ideally what like kind of gets you through. And the more projects you build, the more you'll grow and the more you'll get better at coding. And you gotta embrace being uncomfortable. Like there's times when I'm digging into one language and I kind of forget the other, and I go back into it. It doesn't feel great, but eventually I pick it back up, and you'll get that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt.
Anyone else have a question on top of their mind? I know we didn't really talk much about the Bucks. I guess that's my question.
I was actually, I kind of got one, Peter, if you don't mind. I was kind of thinking of one.
Shoot.
So what is the biggest difference, or I can't think of, for lack of a better term, like culture shock of changing from baseball to basketball, or is there any, or is it very similar? I'm kind of curious.
It's generally kind of the same. In terms of the big thing is like, like being with the Mets, like really developing like a process of like how I evaluate players, how I kind of look at them. The big difference is like just the way the language is, how players are evaluated, like what more goes into the decision making process. There's like there's differences, but they're like, as surprising as it sounds, it's not really as different as you think. And also just like for me, like having my boss there that I've known for a while, like it's really given me a comfort zone to be able to work and be able to like I know how everything kind of works within our department, and so it makes it kind of easy to be able to communicate. And the Bucks do such a great job in terms of like communication, and like everyone's pretty open to ideas. Like within like a month, I had already joined a couple of groups within the Bucks. And that was pretty mind blowing to me. And so many different types of initiatives, and everyone's generally pretty nice. So if you're working in a front office where people are pretty open and pretty nice, it's pretty easy to be able to transition between organizations, I found.
Anyone else? You can raise your hand if you are one when someone else is talking, but feel free to jump in.
I have a quick question. Hi, Sanjay. So I'm currently a finance student, and I'm looking to do a master's degree in analytics as well. So I just had a question, both because you mentioned you're also in the analytics graduate program at Rutgers. what graduate courses do you recommend? And also, as a student, what direction or what avenues, I guess, do you suggest going about careers in analytics, whether that be internships, and if that's just going through LinkedIn, going online, or reaching out specifically to people in the field?
Yeah, great question. In terms of like right now, I'm in statistics. It's I think it's not really like there's not really one answer to it. I deal a lot with biostatistics, but I see a lot of relationship between the stuff that's going on in biostatistics and what's going on in terms of MBA stuff. And like I've dealt a lot with Bayesian statistics, and as like if you look at like the ESPN RPM stuff, a lot of that stuff is built in Bayesian statistics. So there's generally not like a single path into it. You just want to find stuff that you're really interested in terms of analytics and be able to just take those ideas and be able to apply it. Like right now, I'm learning more about survival analysis. So I'm digging more into that kind of stuff and being able to apply it to my work and kind of when I was like starting my master's program at Rutgers, I was looking at a lot of stuff from Penn State has like this, like it's very specific to statistics, and they dealt a lot with like generalized linear models and logistic models, and it's dealing kind of stuff with it's by this guy named Alan Agresti, and so I took a lot of that stuff, and like I find applications within like sport. I've put a lot of that kind of analysis into baseball, and then I was recently thinking about it a couple weeks ago, and like thinking about how can I apply it to basketball. So there's you're going into finance and you're going to analytics, and there's a lot of stuff that you can apply. Whether I think in finance there's a lot of stuff in terms of time series analysis that you can utilize, that you can be able to use within whatever type of analysis you want to do, whether it's basketball, baseball, hockey. It's just I would definitely advise. There's a lot of like Twitter accounts that you can look at too, whatever sport you're interested in, just deep dive into those and be able to know like what topics people are hitting on, and you can start to apply whatever you're learning in classes and see like, am I doing better analysis than these people? To your other question, in terms of like really kind of figure out how you want to go about like applying for internships, I would say like get to know as many people as you can. I mean, it's like this is the best time to take advantage of your .fordham edu email. People will look at your email when you're reaching out, because they'll know that you're interested in learning more about what they're doing. So I would like what you can do, and that's what I did a lot when I was at Fordham, is you can go on many teams' business directories, and you can go look up what people do, what like let's say for the Tampa Bay Rays, you're interested in baseball analytics because they're doing a lot of baseball analytics stuff. You could look up in their business directory, okay, who works for this this branch of the Tampa Bay Rays. You find their name. A lot of companies have the same email signature, and then you just reach out. You say, hey, do you have some time to speak for an hour about like whatever you're interested in? And that makes a big deal when it comes to that's one part. That's not necessarily the like actually getting the internship, but when you start to apply for internships, people will focus on like if they know your name or they heard of you or you set a good impression, you get on one side of the list, and that gives you an advantage to possibly getting an internship. You can look on Teamwork Online. I know sometimes they're on LinkedIn. And I think that's like kind of your best shot. And sometimes the people that you reach out with, they'll reach out to you saying that they have an internship there for you. So
I just have one more follow-up. Also, you mentioned just knowing some kind of programming language is important. Is there one you recommend over the other, or just having some sense of an idea of one is good?
I would say being able to, I would say knowing both is like pretty essential. Things are starting to lean more and more over the years towards Python, but statisticians are statisticians. My professor deals a lot with survival analysis. He only programs in R, and a lot of the survival stuff that's being dealt with in R. So that's only for one part of statistics. So I think it is important to know both, but it wouldn't hurt to be able to really have a good grasp of Python, because if you can code in Python, it allows you to transition to learn front-end development, learn back-end development. And, so I would also just say like knowing SQL in terms of any type of position that you want in analytics, you have to know that. But that's just the baseline in terms of data, like aggregating data.
Yeah, I have a question about just basketball analytics in general. What are the things that are on the frontier of what the Bucks are doing? I don't give away anything that's proprietary, obviously. Definitely. Yeah, but and then kind of your take on where the future of basketball analytics could be going.
Well, I mean, the big thing is just like how many types of what type of data analysis that you can look at. There's so much that goes on when it comes to 5-on-5 basketball. Looking at trying to identify a single player's value can be pretty noisy. And so with the technology that's out there in terms of the optical cameras that can scan players around the court, if you look on, I would definitely advise this, like if you wanted to like learn more about what it's like working in basketball analytics, there's a data set for it's by the stats side. I think it's for it's like the second spectrum data, but it was like public on the Stats NBA site for a little bit. The GitHub is already there, so that a lot of that stuff becomes so important to be able to look at, because it just allows you to look at so much more of what's going on the court and be able to really, deep dive into like what is a player's value. I mean, if you look generally at like points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, these types of statistics, there's a reason why there's so much more information that's out there that you can deep dive into, like why a player is good rather than those slash lines and those optical cameras and what is being examined in terms of the box score. There's so much that you can kind of dive into and be able to analyze. Before I joined the Bucks, obviously with the Last Dance happening, I wanted to know more about what was going on in terms of like basketball analytics. And I'm not sure if you guys follow Ben Taylor, but that's my guy. Like he changed everything how I look at basketball analytics. His thing was, if you look at Adrian Dantley's box plus minus on Basketball Reference, I think he's he's had years where he's like basically like a Hall of Famer. And in Ben Taylor's book, Thinking Basketball, he talks about how Adrian Dantley, he would have high scoring efficiency numbers. And a lot of that came down to he would pump fake the ball like 20 times. 20 seconds would come off the clock, and then he would hot potato the ball to someone else. And so that is where like generally the box score might not be able to capture that information, because like, in those small opportunities where he saw that he could score, he was sufficient. But if you look at what his teammates did, he was generally on teams that were poor offensively. And it seems like such a simple concept, but there's so much more that goes on outside the box score. And it's just, it's not, you don't want to just classify it as, you just can't measure it. It's just, you have to find a way to be able to do it. And so I would definitely, I know this is like more pieces of advice, but I would definitely read Ben Taylor's Thinking Basketball, his podcasts, and that can kind of give you so many ideas of what you can look at in terms of basketball analytics. I mean, he, I think recently was talking about just practice, like how do players practice? What is the best way to optimize it? And like I brought up before, when it comes to baseball analytics, I mean, that is something that was like popping up so much is, okay, like how do we use Rapsodo? How do we use TrackMan? How do we optimize this pitcher? How do we get him to spin the ball more? How do we get this guy to not hit the ball on the ground? So, like those are things that are constantly developing basketball. And those are like potential things that like, and it really opens up to like more analysis that can be done.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? All right, if nobody else has any other questions, I think we can wrap things up for tonight. Thank you, Sanjay, for coming today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
A lot of great insights on a lot of different sports. We had a great turnout from our base today, and I'm just really thankful you guys you came out today.
Yeah.
So
whenever you need me, just you can always hit me up. All right.
Yeah, we'll do. You want to leave your email in the chat if anyone has any questions
definitely.
or yeah.
Boom.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming out today. We will see you next week, and make sure to keep looking at your emails. We'll talk about e-board elections for next year and the coming days. And see you guys next time.
Peace, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.